Hi, you're locked in to another edition of Explosive Sessions with yours truly, DJ Paris Walker, in the hot seat for Explosive Beats Daily Podcast with our resident co-host, the man himself, Mr. Mikey Biggs, or I should say, Selector Mikey Biggs. How you doing, sir?
Damn.
Okay.
Chris, bro. Yeah.
Well, as you know, this reggae show, or I should say this reggae music news show, because it's all about reggae music news, things that's happening in and around the UK, in and around our hometown of Birmingham, right? And as usual, we're going to get through to our agenda. I'm just looking down on the list, right? And got a few things to cover today. You had a live event over the weekend. We're going to talk about your revival events, and also later on, we're going to talk about the it's an online media festival, a big reggae media festival, if I'm correct. Right. So let's get started then. So start off with your ever popular revival selection, which you've posted on social media. Getting tons of comments.
Yo. So, all right, as I said this before, man, you know what I'm saying? I'm a vinylist, you get me? I love the vinyl thing and whatever, you get me? And I'm just posting a series of vinyl tunes like every day, every other day sort of thing, you get me? There's because the vinyl things, right now it's a niche market. I feel there's a niche market in revival and vinyls as well. You get me playing vinyls and that whole vinyl thing. There's a lot of people worldwide that don't even know about enough of them tunes what I'm posting up on there. You get me? So that's what I'm kind of doing, man. It's like a marketing tool, isn't it?
Yeah, I can get with that, because you was telling me before, right, that a lot of people, right, who like, okay, we're talking about I always said that vinyl should have been extinct, right, when CDs came out, and then when the stream thing came in, CDs was extinct, right? But for you to play a vinyl and get the amount of comments that you're getting on these tracks, right, it's like even that big company Techniques have refused to discontinue the SL1210, and that's amazing.
Yeah, I know, man. Vinyl's a big thing, bro. It's a big thing. Remember me telling you. To be fair, I don't think vinyl ever went out. You get me? I just don't think it ever went out. A lot of people sold off their vinyls, but the people that was buying them back, like buying them. You get me? And, collecting them, and DJs, actually, doing events with vinyls. It's a big thing, bro. Remember me tell you, it's a real big thing. So
tell me about the track that you've done.
The track that I played, all right, so the other day we post a Junior Biles tune.
Junior Biles?
But Junior Biles, the guy what sings Fade Away.
Fade Away.
The tune Fade Away. The classic tune Fade Away. Him sing this tune. Right, and a rhythm called Baba Boom, right? By the Jamaicans, because they're the original people that sang that tune from back in the day. So we played the Junior Biles and we played the Kojak and Liza cut to it. See, now, me remember them tunes there as a youth growing up. You get me? And it's a rhythm that I've always loved. It's one of my favorite all-time rhythms as well. And that was one of the reasons why I posted it, you get me? And these are tunes that you just don't really hear. When you go to a revive, go to a vintage party or something like that, you don't really hear music like that again, you get me? So, me did it for make the world know why, yeah, man. And them kind of tune that y'all go, yeah, you get me? So, yeah.
Because a lot of people who sort of go for this revive thing, there's still, for me, maybe it's me, but they seem to be sticking to this 90s thing. What's all this 90s? There's over decades. You know what I mean? Tell me, what's your feelings on that?
You know, oh man, the 90s, man. You know, because we lived the 90s, we are the 90s. That's like our era. You get me? And people have it as one of the greatest era in music. You know, reggae and dancehall, R&B, hip hop. You get me? You know, jungle was born in the 90s. Drum and bass. You get me? Garage came at the last end of the 90s, early 2000s. So people have this 90s era as the greatest era, and everybody just wants to be a part of the 90s thing. So anything 90s, them have a run for do. You get me? It's like everybody wants to be, even people that they weren't even there in that era. It's like they feel they want to be a part of that. You know, why you hearing 90s music play all over the place. And for me, yeah, the 90s was great. We not deny that we had some really great times in the 90s, but I don't think that was the greatest era for music for me. You get me? No way.
Because I just think,
great era.
I think it was a great era, right? But there were like, we wasn't like as 90s DJs, like we started our careers in the early 90s as with, you know what I mean, as grown men, right? But I just didn't think, right, like it was just anything special at the time. You know what I mean? It was like I was loving the 70s stuff. I was loving the 80s rare groove scene as well, and
that's what I'm saying.
But we still played current music. We didn't just abandon what was happening currently to just stick to 90s. This is my point that I'm trying to make.
Yeah, I know that.
And I like the DJs, what I've seen, they've abandoned their current era just for 90s.
See, it was different with as much as we embraced the Buju Banton them, the Snoop Dogg them. Because don't forget, you know, Snoop Dogg them bossing at the 90s, you know. You get me? Tupac them man, they were alive when we were youth. We're all the same age. You get me? So when Buju Banton and them artists there, the hip hop, Mary J. Blige, she bossing at the 90s with her album 411. Even though we was playing them tunes there, when them tunes they were fresh and current at that time, it's like we still had respect for the foundation. You get me? So we kind of mix the two. What I find with a lot of the younger DJs now, you get me? They don't. You know what? It's hard because some of them do, and a lot of them don't. What I find with a lot of them, it's like they play 90s. They just want to play it 90s. Some of them don't even like. They knew it. They don't even like their current tunes. Them. So they will just play what their parents, which is us, they'll play them tunes. I don't know.
I just think I think it's a shame because you've got radio stations where you've got a whole day filled with someone playing 90s, and it's not just one DJ. It's like back-to-back DJs across the schedule playing 90s music, right? And then for me, it's sidelining. Artists, local artists in the city, whether it be Birmingham, Manchester, Leeds, Derby, Wales, Cardiff, whatever, right? It's sidelining the artists who are trying to get music to radio stations, right? Because the DJ's stuck in the 90s and not wanting to play music what's currently coming out from artists what's producing music now. And I think that's important. It's always good to pay homage and have certain homage to 90s, but to dominate the playlist all day to 90s when there's current artists, I think you're alienating a whole generation of musicians, right, for a different era, don't you think?
But mind you, this let me show you this scene, and this is I think we see this with my own eyes, you know. Right, big up Big John Newthousand, right? His birthday party at Sugar Sweet on Broad Street, right? And he had the guest DJ from LA, California. He's a mutual brethren, one DJ named DJ Barney, right? So he already had bookings here in the country. He was in London. He did 2 dates in London. He came to Birmingham because he wanted to meet us and everything. So we did Dead End Now, right? And Barney, you know, I do theme set, right? Now, the music what was played was current, you know. No old tune to play, you know, it's just current tunes, bro. So Barney's doing his thing now, and him and Guan, you know, but the people there, I mean, it's a younger crowd as well, you get me? So the youth, them are Guan, you know, but saying, I mean, see Barney do a thing where he mixing some 90s tune, brethren, and it never worked.
Wow.
Yo, remember me?
Wow.
It didn't work, blood. It never worked. But let me tell you what I read about that DJ, that guy seating up. You see, Bogle, remember when Bogle, Buju Banton was the freaking, was the artist dancer song, and you play Bogle and everybody at Bogle, brethren.
Yeah, it was a phenomenon.
Place, 1,000 people would be in the dance, brethren, and Bogle playing, everybody at Bogle, yo, when Barney dropped that song there, brethren, the youth them stood up on him and he mix out that quick, you know, blood.
Wow.
And go back to the correct thing and get back me see it, you know.
Wow.
I say, look on this. The 90s don't work with them youth there, brethren. The youth don't want to hear their current song. So I will say that there are youths and there are DJs that play current tunes, bro. You get me? And they're not in that, you know what I'm saying? They're not stuck in that 90s thing. You get me? So, yeah, there is DJs what do it. There is some DJs that don't do it.
Wow. That's amazing, man. Like I said to you, I am surprised anyway about the way things have been going in music, because I even just to wrap up on this revival section, right? I was last year during the lockdown, right? I was on a radio station, and I won't mention the radio station's name, but the station, right? I happened to do my radio show on the Monday evening, and the guy, it was a bank holiday, he says, okay, then we're gonna do a bank holiday special where all we play is old school, so nothing before 2000, nothing after 2000 can be played. So I just said to the station manager, says, mate, I might as well have the day off then, because I focus on new music. I don't play old music because I'm not nostalgic like that. I do appreciate the music, and it was big hits at the time, but for me, it's rinsed, and I want to play new music. I get excited when I hear new music, right? So he gave me the day off, and then somebody else took over the show and for that day, and they done their 90s thing, and I was like, fair enough, you know what I mean? The guy wanted a whole day of just that, and I think you were saying that you didn't actually play 90s because you was on that same station and you didn't play 90s.
Yeah, now, all right, and hear what I'm going to say about that. There's nothing wrong with a weekend, a year playing old school music. There's nothing wrong with that. You get me? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with doing a yearly thing for a weekend playing vintage and whatever, right? But me personally, I ain't playing no 90s, bro. To play 90s is playing that for me, bro. When I did that show, because I was part of that, and I did a show on there, and I played 80s. You get me? Because 90s ain't the be-all and end-all of era. You understand what I'm saying to you? I get gassed over the 80s selection. I'm an 80s man, bro. Saying we grew up in the 70s, me a little boy, and I appreciate the 70s music, because why the 70s was absolutely, we can't even, the 70s music was spiritual to me. You get me?
What's your notable tracks? What's your notable tracks of? Give me a couple of notable tracks of 70s and 80s for you, like some notable ones, like 1 and 2.
All right then. So you see them tuning what we played the other day, the Baba Boom rhythm, the Kojak and Liza, and the Junior Biles. Saying them are 70s tunes. You get me? 78, 79 tune them. You get me? Fade Away, Junior Biles, 70s tune,
Okay.
get me? 70s, you get me? 80s tunes now. Like I tell you artists that I rate from from them time when he was a youth. Barrington. See,
Yeah, I love Barrington Levi, man. Oh my God, Here I Come was my favourite track.
Look, Paris, yo, stop it, man. You Here I Come, you don't know Barrington Levi, bro. For you mention era, me I'm talking about from when he made tunes like Shine Eye Girl and
I know Shine Eye Girl, man. Yeah.
And Crucifixion and them two, them are Barrington Levi to me. You understand what I'm saying? So you see them tunes like the late 70s, early 80s era, right? Them song there, you get me? Prison Over Rock. I mean, that's one of his commercialist tunes from them time, but we love that tune from the 80s. You get me? 83, but you see from 83, going back, Barrington Levi sang them. I mean that, bro. That's why when Barrington Levi come at England, I don't really go and see him because I know what he's gonna sing. Because he ain't gonna sing any of the tunes and what I want to hear. You get me? But I'm just giving you like off the top of my head, that kind of thing. Me like the soul music from the 70s and 80s. You get me? So there's nothing wrong with the station manager saying once a year we're gonna take the weekend and play rare. For me not deal with 90s because 90s to me is played out now. Everybody's on that. Everybody, like this is when I checked my email, I saw a mix from a DJ, 90s mix. Again, you get me? When I looked at the playlist, it's the same set of song them. You get me? It's the same thing. Everybody's thing. Like that was the greatest era, but for me, that ain't the. Listen, me not diss the 90s, and the 90s was a great time. It was a great time at that time. The music was wicked, people. It was a feel-good vibe. Me not diss it. You get me? I'm just like, now in 2022, you tired I hear them tune there? You get me?
There's been 20 years of music. That's why I'm so kind of, that's my point. But there's been 20 years of music, right? And for it to all be sidelined by one decade, you know what I mean? For me,